You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. It is the most universally recognized script in law enforcement. The origin of this legal shield is found in the records of a repeat offender with a third-grade education. This is Phoenix, Arizona, in the early 1960s, a time when the procedural rules for police were far from standardized. Ernesto Miranda lived here as a small-time criminal who struggled to read or write, having dropped out of school before the age of 10. By attempting to break the law, Miranda triggered a legal process that would eventually define how the government is allowed to enforce it. Before 1966, there was no requirement for officers to inform a suspect of their constitutional rights before questioning began. When police arrested Miranda in 1963 on charges of kidnapping and rape, they took him straight into a closed interrogation room. 2 hours later, the detectives emerged with a written confession, signed by Miranda. Miranda signed that document completely unaware that he had a right to an attorney or that he could simply refuse to speak. The detectives had secured their evidence by relying on the suspect's total ignorance of how the legal system actually worked. At his initial trial, Miranda's attorney tried to suppress that confession. He argued his client didn't understand what he was signing or what rights he was waiving. The local court dismissed the argument, used the confession to convict him, and sent the case to the Arizona Supreme Court, where it was upheld. A new lawyer took an interest in the case, seeing a fundamental flaw in the arrest process, and appealed it to the highest court. The core argument presented to the U.S. Supreme Court was simple. Constitutional rights are meaningless if a suspect isn't explicitly told they exist before they are questioned. This one case transformed from a local felony trial into a massive test of the American constitutional framework. In 1966, the Supreme Court issued a landmark ruling. Any confession obtained without proactively informing a suspect of their rights would be inadmissible in court. This created a sudden problem for police across the country. The court mandated a change, but hadn't provided the actual words officers were supposed to use. To solve this, a group of attorneys in California met to draft a definitive, standardized text that would satisfy the court's new requirements. This shows the resulting 6-point checklist: the right to silence, use of statements as evidence, and the right to an attorney. These points had to be easily memorizable so beat cops could recite them accurately during an arrest. High-minded Supreme Court philosophy became a functional reality when it was distilled into this mandatory script for every officer in the country. Having his conviction overturned did not make Ernesto Miranda an innocent man. It only meant the state couldn't use his own words against him. Prosecutors retried him using other evidence, resulting in a new guilty verdict and a 20-year prison sentence. After his parole in 1971, Miranda's life remained unstable. He was arrested again for parole violations before finally being released years later. In 1976, his life ended abruptly during a bar fight in Phoenix. The man who became the face of modern procedural rights managed to protect millions of citizens from state overreach, yet he never managed to save himself from his own nature. Even today, there are strict limits on when this rule applies. Police are not required to read you your rights during every interaction. The Miranda warning is only mandatory during a custodial arrest, where you are not free to leave, and prior to a formal interrogation. During a routine traffic stop, for example, the Supreme Court has ruled that officers can issue citations without reciting the Miranda Rights. The legacy of the Miranda case is the requirement that the government follow a strict, transparent process when it moves to take away a citizen's liberty. By protecting the rights of a man like Ernesto Miranda, the system ensures that the same protections are available for every person, regardless of their guilt or innocence.